Welcome back to another episode of the E34 with the S52. So now that the motor and all the driveline stuff is pretty much squared away, it's time to get into the suspension because we have a road trip to go on, so we don't want to do that with old suspension. You can see in the rear, I've already cheated and done the rear suspension and fitted the HREs, so there's your little sneak peek right there. I have the clips, I'm just going to dump them in after this. I did those at a different time. But so anyway, we got a few parts here. We got BC coilovers welded on to knuckles, brand new hubs. These were brought to me by a forum member. So BC is not my favorite. I'm really not a fan of BC, but when it can be here quickly, then I'll do them. And I didn't have time to wait on Broadways and stuff like that. So, and they're already pre-welded, which is even better. So I got the BCs here. Then I got these AKG bump steer plates. So what these are is basically you put them in between the bottom of the knuckle and the knuckle on the car, and it fixes the suspension geometry because when you lower a car, it lowers the car and then the control arms sit way at an angle. So this fixes that a little bit. So again, shout out to the E34 community. These will not come from AKG and fit. They have to be modified because the design's not perfect. So you have to file this inner channel and then re-drill one of these holes. Shout out to Tom, it's already done, so that's great. So then we also got rear subframe bushings. So these are infamous to go bad on these cars. These ones on this car don't look great. So I'm doing these. These are PowerFlex ones. They're used. I traded like some other parts for these, but these don't go bad. So we're gonna be doing rear subframe bushings. That'll probably be a different day than today, but it's the same video. Then along with those, we got new dog bones. Lem Forder, of course, comes with the extra hardware. Mine on this car are shot as they are on most E34s. And then we got upper and lower control arms. So for the lowers, I went with Lem Forder because Lem Forder is pretty much the way to go for suspension for these cars for most things. I wanted E31 lowers, can't get those right now. And then for the uppers, I did the Mal HD. So Mal Standard has a bad rep, but Mal HD is actually pretty good. I've had great luck with these on my turbo car, so it is what it is. FCP Euro lifetime warranty on all these parts, so like worst case, something goes bad, I can get it for free. So this is the concoction of what we'll be doing in this video, along with the rear suspension that's already in. Like I said, R tabs are staying for now, diff bushings are staying for now, but we will have all new, oh, and the tie rods and steering stuff is all good. I checked it out, all very good condition. I don't notice any play. So later down the road, yes, but for now, these are things that we actually absolutely need to have addressed for such a road trip. So let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so we're doing this completely out of order, by the way. That's why I probably am going to be in a different outfit for the first half of this video, because today I'm bored and waiting on parts, so I'm just doing a I'm just doing a test fit on these wheels today. So I want to do the rear suspension. So next step is to pull apart the back seat, which sucks. The rear coils are easy enough on this car, but you gotta disassemble the rear seat because you gotta pull the rear deck out. So that's why it's kind of a pain in these cars, and it's kind of unfortunate because it would otherwise be super easy, but it's not. So now that leaves us with getting the rear half of the back seat off. So there's a few screws that hold this in. We don't have to get it completely out, we just have to get it up and down, or I guess out and down, so that the rear deck can slide out. So the rear seat is just out of place enough to now where we can access the rear deck. There is a few push pins that we have to pry that hold the rear deck in. Okay. Rear deck came out decently. Now I'm going to use this opportunity to vacuum and get all the dust off this. It's pretty dusty. We have access to our rear deck, where you'll find a bunch of sound deadening that we pretty much have to just rip up to get access to the top of where our coils will be. So right here, right in front of the rear speakers, you'll find a little crease in the sound deadening. You got to tear it, then you got to kind of tear it over here. It sucks. It doesn't feel right to do it, but we have to. And there you will see the top of your rear shocks, and there's 3 bolts that hold those on, so we just got to loosen those, and then we can head underneath. So you got to kind of peel back your sound deadening. You don't have to totally rip it up, but you got to peel it back a little bit to get access. There we go. You just got to kind of fight it. Oh, and there it is. Here is probably the original shock. I mean, yeah, it's labeled Sachs BMW. I would say this is the OG right here. In with the coilover. Side to side doesn't matter, so we just got to put it in. So I'm going to try to get it through these holes and bolt it from the top, and then we will come down here and jack up the hub to reach. So there we go. The BC comes with its own hardware, which is nice. It's a really awkward position. The shock goes in the hole, just like that, clicks in place. Find the shock bolt. So now you want to torque these down with weight on the suspension. Since this car's going to be low, if you go too low with these, you will not be able to tighten down the shock bolt because the hub will be above the body line or the chassis line. So I've made that mistake before, so you want to make sure you have this tightened and ready to go until you, until you're ready. So I was going to jack this hub up and put the weight of the car on it, and then I will torque this down. 94 foot-pounds on this bolt. And we are done underneath. So now tighten the top. I believe there's 16 foot-pounds, which is like nothing. And then this shock is all done. Alright, then you're going to make sure you have your preload tightened to how you want it, your dampening, because once it's done, you don't want to pull everything apart. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll go 4 from full soft. So I want these to ride smooth. We don't need stiff dampening for no reason. So now would be a good time to do front brakes, but these front brakes look pretty damn good, so I don't think it needs them. But we gotta get the brakes off. Alright, I got the caliper safely wired up to this little hook here. The line's stretched, but not too bad. So now we gotta get these ABS out of the things there. The brake pad wear sensor as well. And now we can undo the bottom part of the shock. Easy. Okay, so that's the bottom undone. Now before I get to the top, so we gotta take the sway bar link off, which I actually forgot about. So let me do that real quick. This end link is probably fighting me more than anything else on this car. So rusty. And these end links are in a really awkward area that's hard to get like wrenches on them right. Very easy to strip. But it's just, I've actually never been able to get a socket wrench on here. But with the 3/8, I'm able to. I got a 16 mil on the other end countering it. Oh dude, I'm sweating, man. It's very humid. And this thing is fighting me. My ABS wires just broke. There's our old knuckle, spindle, brand new shock. So I'm glad that I bought ones already welded so I can leave these. So this car at any time can go back to a perfectly factory suspension. Okay, so we've run into a development. Something I think I knew I was gonna run into. And honestly, the breaking of my existing ABS sensor seems to have just, furthered my, the reasoning to do this. So, if you're an E34 head like me, you know that early model cars, meaning pre-92, used a different style ABS hub ring. I think it's a 97 millimeter. Later models, meaning 92 and on, use an 83 mil. So the coilovers I bought are welded to a 95 knuckle, meaning this is the later model ABS, or not ABS, but there's a ring, basically the wheel bearing, that reads, it's a Hall effect sensor. And that's what the ABS sensors read, the spinning of that ring. So 97 millimeter on the old one, 83 on the newer one. So I didn't know if the ABS sensors would be, counter, whatever the word I'm looking for, exchangeable or whatever. So if you look here, maybe you guys can see, the early model off my car that's broken has a longer sensor. You see this sticks out a little bit longer. Then the later model one, which I pulled off a set of part struts that I have, is shorter. I mean, considering that's a bigger one, I don't get why it's shorter. But my guess is that you probably have to use the later model with the later model strut assembly here. So luckily, the connector that goes into the car, sorry I'm off camera, is the same. So I believe using later model ABS sensors with my late model struts in my car shouldn't tweak out the ABS. At least I'm hoping so. I don't think these sensors could be that much different internally to where like the car's like, whoa, this is not, I don't know what this is. So I'm just gonna go ahead and steal these off the parts set I have and convert this car to a later model hub ring. So little thing to learn there if you didn't know. So now we can really get in here and see how destroyed our existing suspension is. So the lower control arm ball joint is gone, like completely gone. So that'll really, that'll definitely cause the car to feel a little squirrely. The inner bushing, I mean, moves a lot. You can see the upper, maybe you can see it back there. Look when I move this knuckle, look how much that moves back there. Decent amount of play in that. Like I said, that ball joint shot. This one's actually leaking too. I believe both ball joints are ripped. But then like I said, tie rod, not bad at all. So tie rods can stay. Steering feels really tight in this car. With 80,000 miles, I would expect the steering stuff to be alright. That's kind of surprising how poor condition that is for 80K, but it is what it is. So there's the nut I was talking about. Like I said, when the strut is off, is the only way you can get to that lower. So I don't know if I've ever actually done lower control arms on an E34. I always do uppers. Uppers do a lot of, have a big part in how the car feels. Lowers, yes, but like these cause 55 mile an hour shimmy, which is really annoying. That doesn't, so both are good to do. I'm just lazy sometimes. But anyway, let's go ahead and pull both of these off. 22 mil. There we go. Pickle fork always does the job. Look at this, dude. Oh my. It's destroyed. This thing didn't do anything for this car. Alright, so that's off. The inner bushing doesn't feel too bad. So I gotta go in there and undo the inner bushing. There's our lower. Look at this. Oh, it's horrendous. In case you guys need a reminder of what a new one looks like, I came and do it by hand. So, nice Lemforder unit here. New Lemforder unit going in. The bushing here and the bushing in the upper, you're not supposed to torque until the car is under its own weight. So I will be doing that later once I put the car down on wheels. I always do that the hard way and use wood, but if you put it on some wheels, it's a lot easier because the car sits a lot higher. So, well, so you can move ball joints by hand, but they shouldn't feel as easy as that worn one. Brand new nuts for the knuckle part. 68 foot-pounds for the ball joint. Sorry, I had to cut it because I had to absolutely wail on this piece of garbage. Wow. Alright, here's our old upper. Dated 1990, gotta love it. All original suspension. Alright, here's our new Mile HD upper control arm. New nut as well. Oh, dude, I did this last time. I put it in upside down. Why do I always mess this up? It's supposed to go so that the arch is over. As you can see, it's stuck. It made the tie rod get stuck down. Okay, so, okay, we fixed our mistake. It's the same as the other control arm, 68 foot-pounds. There's both the control arms, all done. So, now I think we can put in our new coilovers, but we will need our bump steer plates. So I've never put these on an E34 before. I've obviously driven slammed E34s and stuff, but never bump steer plates, so I'm really excited to see how this car feels with these. I hear it's like a night and day difference. So these also came with longer hardware, which we will need to go grab, but let's go put this coil in. Alright, new shock, coilovers. So here's the bump steer ones and here are the regular ones. Obviously big difference there because I have an extra inch. You know what I have to do, which I heard about with these things, since it pushes the control arm down but the shock stays, the brake dust shield hits the control arm boot and it would pretty much shred the boot. So I'm going to cut out a piece of my shield right now. Pain in the ass, but I don't want to destroy my thing. So about right here to here, we're going to cut real quick. Okay, so now that this is just a monstrosity, I mean, I just absolutely windowed the thing. Might as well just cut this off too, but we'll leave it. Now let's try this for a third time.
A few moments later.
Bro, oh my god. I need to use the back. I'm struggling like crazy right now. Oh my god. Dude, I gotta cut this shit more. This is getting really frustrating. I might as well just cut off the entire bottom. Okay, I finally got it started. You can see heat shield cut 3 times. Not an issue with the ball joint anymore. 81 foot-pounds on these bad boys. ABS plug back in, shoved in the engine bay. So another interesting development, the hubs have a different rotor set screw location, which is ridiculous. So the rotors luckily have both the holes. So that's the one for the older hub, the smaller hole, and then that's the bigger one. So there's 2 set screws. This is the one I pulled off the car, this little guy. Luckily, I have a spare bigger one here. I only have one though, so I'm gonna have to order one for the other side, but that doesn't matter because you don't need this anyway. Once the wheel's on, the rotor's tight. But, so now, 81 foot-pounds on these as well. So I believe these are like 16 foot-pounds, which means we're just gonna go with a short wrench and snug them up. There you have it. Alright, so now we gotta torque the control arms under load. So I got the car lowered to about the ride height I'm gonna run, not identical, but definitely lower than it was. I'm not sure it matters, but you might as well have the car closer to how it will be driving when you torque everything. So, not a lot of room here. Would have been nicer to have this car further off the ground, but. Alright, so now comes the fun part of the rear subframe bushings. So now this could go good, could go bad. Getting them out is obviously the challenging part because we're putting in PowerFlex polys. I think personally you're out of your mind if you decide to put anything other than these in this car if you do subframe bushings, because I'm going to show you guys a old trick of the trade method to get these out pretty easily, but there is no easy way to get them in. And if you're trying to press in stock ones, you're gonna have a bad time. These go in 10 seconds and these will last the life of the car. And subframe is not one of those things that can really there's not a lot of NVH that comes from subframe. So you could have solid bushings and it wouldn't really be all that different. But these are nice soft polys, so they're decent anyway. But let's get in here and I'm gonna show you guys how to do these subframe bushings. So to start, before we get underneath, we had to take off our seatbelt receptacle because you have to get access to this right here. Underneath this sound deadening is the subframe pins, which we're gonna have to press out, or not press out, but hammer out in order to do this method. So I guess I'm gonna have to pry. Oh, that came off very easily. Nice. All right, there's your subframe pin down there. So now I'm gonna do that to the other side, spray some liquid wrench down this hole just to ease with the install, or the extraction of these, because they could be a little crusty in there. So all you have to do is drop this retaining bracket plate that holds the subframe. So there's two 13s up front, and then there's a 22 at the back, the big nut that goes on the pins. And now we're gonna thread this back on, and then with the socket, put the socket on and hammer it. And we're gonna strike the pin so that it goes up. There we go. Now, you can see, pin comes right out the top. Alright, so I did the same on the other side. That one came out a little bit easier. Now is the fun part. So now, we will lower the subframe. So there, it's hanging pretty good. And now, we're probably gonna want the jack out of the way. We gotta go on, and we're gonna start on this side. Get a pry bar, pry down the subframe, and then get an object that is smaller than the hole in the subframe, but fills in the diameter of most of the bushing. Now, I used to have a good tool for this. I have lost it over the years, so I'm gonna use this big whatever. This thing comes in handy so often. I don't even know what it is. It came in my toolbox. It's a little small, so I'm hoping this doesn't give us issues and only like press out the center, but we will try it right now. Pry down and get this in between the subframe and the bushing. Okay, so I extended my jack handle and was able to get the spacer in there, so you can see it's pressed between the subframe and the frame of the car. So now is the really fun part. So now what we do is we go get the jack, we set it up really close to that subframe mount, and then we're going to wail on it with a heat gun until it slides out. So pretty much we're gonna jack up the car so that all the weight is gonna be on that subframe mount, obviously. And since there's a spacer in between it, it will act as a way to press out the old bushing. So I've done this on a few cars. I've done this on my old 6 Series E34s and stuff, and I used a torch. The torch gets a bit sketchy because those rubber bushings like to catch on fire, and those are all your fuel lines right there. So I kind of don't want to do that method, so I'm going to go ahead and use my heat gun, which may take a lot more time, may be annoying, but I think it'll be safer. So you can see my spacer is a little small. It's kind of just pressing out the inside, but the car is off the jack stand, so that means the weight's working. So now let's go ahead and heat it up. You can see it's kind of starting to go now, so I'm just going to keep hitting it. It's probably been like 15 minutes consecutive with the heat gun. A torch would make this so much easier, but oh, and there it goes. Here's the old subframe bushing. Pretty poor condition, pretty cracked up, all original. I guess the lighting's not very good, but yeah, there's the old one. Here's the new Power Flex. So now I'm going to repeat on the passenger side, get that out, and then we will go ahead and pop these new ones in. The Power Flexes come with some assembly lube, so you want to do the outer bores. Alright, that's the top. Just like that. See, that's how easy it is. And then, after I clean my hand, we'll hammer in the pin. But then this is what expands the bushing to hold it firm. We just gotta take the pin and put it back down, and then line it up, put the bolt on with the plate. That's it. So the final torque on those is meant to be done when the car is under load. So before we lower the car to the ground, let's go ahead and take care of these horrendous dog bones, because these also have to be torqued under load. So then we'll take these off, replace them, and then we'll lower the car on the ground and we'll do the final torquing of both of these. So these are relatively simple. So you got one bolt here and then you got a bolt in the nut here. So you got to get the wrench in here, which is kind of it's a really tricky spot. Now the outer should be super easy. And voila, there's our old dog bone. And you can see there, this thing was destroyed. These usually go first on E34s. This component just sees a lot of wear and tear because of kind of what it does. So I went with the Lemforder kit because it gives you all new hardware, which is nice. Who doesn't love new hardware? Then here's the dog bone itself. Old versus new. You can just easily see the difference here. Alright, so I got the trailing arm jacked up a little bit. When you jack it up, then these points meet. So they got the same angle, so now it should go in both ways. Alright, so I'm going to tighten these down a little bit and then do the other side, and then we'll lower the car and torque them. So now it's time to torque the subframe bolts to 102 foot-pounds. This isn't in the Bentley manual. I kind of had to scour the internet for this. So the subframe bushings, dog bones, rear brakes are done. I did the brake lines. I might throw somewhere in this video, maybe. But you'll also notice that this car is fully fitted on the HREs now. So for the past couple of days off camera in between my other jobs, I've been working with fitting these wheels, which was a lot harder than it may seem. So the front is on too big of a spacer. I gotta downsize it. This is literally just so I can finish the suspension stuff. I need a 10 mil just to clear the struts. Right now I'm on a 15, it pokes them out too far. Rear is about where it's at. I wish these wheels were a tad bit less aggressive so I could run a bit of a bigger tire, but it is what it is. We have about a week to get on the road with this thing, so I still have a few other things I want to check up. So the fitment is pretty much where it will be at ride height wise. Front will go in a little bit more. So I'm pretty happy with this. I think this thing looks sweet. Now I got fresh suspension all around, so this thing should be driving fantastic. So that brings us to the end of this episode. This was a very tiring episode. Just the working with the rusty components, like I said, the body of this car got no rust, but the East Coast for some reason just absolutely seized up all the subframe bolts and things like that for control arms. Everything fought me. My hands are just sore. My arms busted my knuckles so many times. It really fought. But now the suspension is all set up. So usually I would go for a ride right now, let you guys know what I think. I've been doing this car forever, so I'm just going to do the first test drive with the S52 swap all in one video. So we'll be covering how the suspension feels, how the engine does, all that stuff. That'll be coming up very soon here, the first test drive video. It might even be the next up in the series, but we'll see. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned a few things. And let me know what you guys think about the E34. I'm pretty excited. Finally seeing this car on the ground in its form is really exciting. So I'll see you guys in the next one.